In 1043, the Druze closed their doors forever. The Chouf Mountains of Lebanon, home to one of the most genetically isolated communities in the Middle East. The Druze number roughly 1 million people worldwide, a small but remarkably cohesive community with an extraordinary genetic story, concentrated in Lebanon, Syria, Israel, and Jordan, a tiny community that sealed itself 1,000 years ago. The Druze faith emerged from the intellectual ferment of Fatimid Cairo. The early missionaries had roughly 25 years to actively recruit followers across the Levant. Then, the leadership declared the call complete, forever. 1043, the year the door closed. No soul would be accepted after, no member would be released. The boundary was theological and absolute. The Druze faith emerged from Ismaili Islam in the early 11th century. Within a generation, it sealed its borders permanently. No conversion into the faith. No marriage outside the community. The theological doctrine is absolute. The Druze sacred texts are kept secret from outsiders. Even within the community, only the initiated have access to the full teachings. The Khalwa is the Druze prayer house. No outsider has ever been permitted to attend a service inside. The religious leaders, called the Uqal, enforce community boundaries. Marriage outside the faith results in permanent expulsion from the community. Village councils maintain strict community discipline and marriage oversight across centuries. Marriage records were scrutinized. Lineage was tracked meticulously. The marriage registers reveal the same family networks intermarrying repeatedly for centuries without interruption. The community was small enough that every marriage was monitored. 1,000 years of enforced isolation. Geneticists wanted to know what that looks like in DNA. In 2013, Mark Haber and colleagues published the most comprehensive genetic study of the Druze ever conducted. On the genetic map, the Druze formed a tight, isolated cluster, distinct from every neighboring population, despite sharing the same geography. The admixture analysis revealed something remarkable. The Druze carry a genetic component preserved unchanged for a millennium. The Druze preserved not just genetics, but cultural practices with roots stretching back thousands of years, agricultural traditions, dietary customs, and kinship structures with deep Levantine origins. Olive cultivation on these terraces predates the Druze faith by thousands of years. That unique component is ancient Levantine ancestry, the genetic signature of the original Neolithic farming populations who lived in the region thousands of years before Islam. The Neolithic Levant was home to the world's first farming communities. Modern Lebanese carry roughly 30 to 40% Neolithic ancestry. Modern Druze carry over 60%. The sealed community preserved what mixing erased elsewhere. The Druze closed their doors centuries ago. That decision preserved something remarkable. The Levant was one of the birthplaces of agriculture. Those ancient Neolithic farmers carried a specific and identifiable genetic signature that persists to this day. Over millennia, migrations from Arabia, Central Asia, and Africa diluted that signature across the region. But the Druze sealed themselves before the major later migrations fully mixed in. Their genomes preserved the older Levantine composition. Modern Druze genomes closely resemble what the general Levantine population looked like 1,000 years ago, a living snapshot of the medieval genetic landscape preserved in living people, a living snapshot of the medieval genetic landscape. Surrounding populations kept mixing. The Druze did not. Druze-Lebanese genetic distance now exceeds many European population pairs separated by thousands of kilometers. People living in adjacent villages, just meters apart, now carry measurably different genetic profiles. Geography means nothing when community boundaries override everything. Geography means nothing when community boundaries override it. Neighbors sharing the same streets for centuries, but carrying measurably different genetic profiles. Geography tells one story. DNA tells another. In daily life, the boundary is invisible. Druze and non-Druze share commerce, friendship, and citizenship. But the isolation has consequences beyond ancestry preservation. The Druze gene pool shows clear signs of genetic drift. Like the Parsi and Ashkenazi, the Druze show elevated carrier rates for recessive diseases amplified by endogamy. Conditions like familial Mediterranean fever and certain metabolic disorders appear at rates significantly higher than in the general Levantine populations. Genetic counseling has become increasingly important in Druze communities. The small gene pool makes carrier matching a practical medical necessity. Community screening programs now test young Druze adults before marriage, identifying carrier pairs who might produce affected children. Madal Shams in the Golan Heights is the largest Druze village in the region. Its residents have participated in multiple genetic studies, confirming the community-wide isolation pattern. The partnership between Israeli institutions and Druze communities has produced groundbreaking research into isolation and disease risk. Carrier screening has prevented dozens of affected births within the community. Israeli hospitals serving Druze populations now routinely offer expanded carrier panels tailored to the specific variants concentrated by the bottleneck. The same closure that preserved their ancient ancestry also concentrated disease-causing variants. Preservation and risk locked together. The Druze in Israel's Golan Heights and Galilee have been studied most extensively due to research access. Israeli geneticists have painstakingly built the most comprehensive Druze genetic database anywhere in the world. Over 1,000 complete genomes sequenced. Over 1,000 genomes sequenced from communities across the region. Each new genome confirms the same pattern: extreme internal homogeneity, minimal external admixture. The community boundary held for 40 generations. The Druze faith emerged in Cairo during the Fatimid Caliphate around 1017 CE. The founder, Al-Hakim bi-Amar Allah, was the sixth Fatimid Caliph. When Al-Hakim disappeared in 1021, the movement's missionaries had roughly 20 years to recruit. By 1043, the leadership declared the call complete. The community membership was permanently fixed. The theological reasoning behind the closure was absolute and has never been revisited. The souls who were meant to be Druze had already joined. No future soul could enter. Reincarnation would cycle within the existing community. The early Druze retreated into the mountains of Lebanon and Syria. Runs of homozygosity analysis reveals the depth of the isolation. Druze genomes contain long stretches of identical DNA inherited from both parents, a hallmark of sustained endogamy across many generations. These homozygous stretches are longer and more frequent in the Druze than in almost any other non-Island population. Mountain geography and strict religious endogamy together created an extraordinarily effective double barrier. Physical isolation reinforcing cultural isolation for 1,000 years. The genetic data confirms the closure date matches the historical record. Each generation passes the faith and the boundary to the next. The children learning under this tree will marry within the community, just as their ancestors did for 40 generations. Across these mountains, a network of sealed communities maintains the ancient pact. The gene flow cessation date, estimated from the DNA, aligns within a century of 1043. No other documented community closure in human history has been so precisely confirmed by completely independent genetic evidence. The Druze case has become the undisputed gold standard in population genetics research. Each successive genetic study published since 2003 has refined the estimate with increasing precision. The convergence of genetic and historical evidence has made the Druze closure the most precisely dated endogamy event in population genetics. Population genetics textbooks now cite the Druze as the definitive case study for community-level genetic isolation. But the Druze genetic story has a twist that researchers did not expect. When the community sealed, it captured genetic diversity from across the Levant. The Druze genome contains Levantine, Arabian, and minor Caucasian and North African elements. The medieval Levant was a crossroads, and the founding Druze captured that diversity. The 11th century Levant was one of the most cosmopolitan regions on Earth. The founders brought meaningful genetic diversity from across the medieval Islamic world into the sealed community. Then the door closed, and that specific mixture was preserved unchanged. The genetic diversity captured at the founding moment was itself surprisingly valuable for long-term community survival. Enough genetic variation to sustain a viable and healthy population for 40 generations without catastrophic inbreeding. The Druze succeeded genetically where many other sealed communities ultimately failed. Diverse at the founding. frozen by the closure, and now distinctly different from every population that continued mixing around them. Today, the Druze serve in the Israeli military, participate in Lebanese politics, and hold positions across Syrian society. Museums across Druze communities preserve the material culture of 1,000 years of sealed existence. Each artifact a testament to continuity within boundaries. Modern scholarship now combines textual history with genetic data. The manuscript says the door closed in 1043. The genome says gene flow stopped around 1043. Two completely independent witnesses, separated by a millennium, agreeing with remarkable and undeniable precision. The distinctive five-colored Druze flag represents the five cosmic principles at the heart of the faith: green, red, yellow, blue, and white. A theology closed to outsiders for 1,000 years. The community maintains strong internal cohesion. Marriage within the faith remains the overwhelming norm, even in modern, secular settings. Druze marriage ceremonies are private affairs. The vows reaffirm the commitment to community continuity. Each wedding preserves the genetic covenant for another generation. Modern Druze youth face the same tension as every closed community. Some young Druze have taken commercial DNA tests purely out of scientific curiosity. Every single result confirms exactly what the community has always known. The bloodline is unbroken, and unlike the Parsi, the Druze population is not declining. 1 million people sustaining the closure with stable demographics. The Druze birth rate remains at or slightly above replacement level. The Druze powerfully demonstrate that strict genetic isolation does not necessarily require demographic collapse. Stable population size can coexist with strict endogamy if fertility rates hold. The village of Bakline in the Chuf contains over 20,000 Druze residents. The Druze are proof that a community can close its genetic borders and survive for a millennium without disappearing. 1,000 years, 40 generations, a community sealed by faith and preserved by geography. And every genome tested confirms the door never opened. Every elder in every village carries the genetic signature of the 11th century founding. One decision in 1043. 1,000 years of consequences, and a genome that science can now read like a sealed letter from the medieval world. If you enjoy evidence-based stories where genetics confirms ancient community boundaries, subscribe. The next episode tests another sealed population. Drop a comment. Is 1,000 years of genetic isolation preservation or imprisonment? The door closed firmly in 1043. 1,000 years later, the DNA confirms it never opened, sealed, preserved, genetically unchanged, for 1,000 years and counting. The evidence is absolute. The star endures, the community endures, the genetics confirm it, and the door remains firmly shut.